Okay, perfect. So welcome everyone. This is our first place winners for the Hackathon for Social Good, taking it to the streets, and I'll let them take it away and showcase all their work.
I'll kick us off. So thank you for having us. We are taking it to the streets. Happy to hear that just got first place in the hackathon competition. So we're pretty pumped. But what this was, it was a data science or a hackathon in order to help with the COVID situation. So we thought we wanted to boost economic activity. That was our goal. So we are here because of two reasons. We know that outdoor seating on closed streets, we could increase space for restaurant seating, which means increased revenue. And we can use data science to determine what those economic benefits would be at the street level. So we are RevGen Consulting, specifically targeted to anything in the data realm. So the four of us got together. We have diverse skill sets. So the four of us got together. It's a mix of architects, engineers, data scientists to come together to identify a way that we could use our skills to get on the streets and go help with a specific problem. So also in one of the sessions yesterday, we heard the phrase taking it to the streets as a way to say that we all need to come together. The government's doing their part, activists are doing their part. So we as data science, we need to do our part as well. We need to go out to the community and use our approaches, our frameworks, our skills to go do things like boost the economy, help with health, help identify where fires are when it comes to like satellite images. So we hope that these specific examples of the Social Good Hackathon could help get you thinking about how you can use this beyond just your day-to-day in your career. So being consultants, we have this framework or really an approach to data science that we can transfer across client needs or just to the societal need. So the details change as part of your code, your data, but the steps are almost always the same. So we found that in that top left corner that it's most important to start with your business problem. So you can have a model that's 99% accurate, but it really needs to go towards a goal. So what are you trying to do with that model? What decisions are you trying to make? So for the Social Good Hackathon, we asked, how do we boost economic activity, get businesses back up and running, which led to this idea of expanding restaurants into street space. But then really, what was the true need behind this? So what analysis do they, whether it be government officials, a task force, what information do they need to go make that decision? And then one step further, we didn't want to just provide a list of like the top 10 streets to go close. But really, we wanted to design this exploratory or interactive tool that provides all of the information they need to go make that decision. So once you really understand the need and dig into that why, the next step is to go ingest your data, explore it, to do all of your data preparation, cleansing. Then it goes into the calculation portion. So how do you actually calculate that information? So whether it's what are the benefits attached to closing a street, what are the costs or impacts tied to like traffic, and then that last step was getting it into the interactive app. That was the method we chose how to present that data, and then getting it into the right hands. So the next step is Yulia is going to actually pull up our code through GitHub and walk us through how we made this happen.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can you guys see Databricks page?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So really we had, for this hackathon, we had a couple of options. We could have just used Jupyter Notebooks or Databricks. We chose Databricks because we thought it's going to be a perfect mix for us, perfect tool for us, because we have a diverse skill set, right? So I know Python, Brian and Steve are really good in R, and Megan can do anything Python, R, or SQL. So that was really a perfect place for us to collaborate. We also wanted to have some kind of good visual capabilities because, again, we wanted to present it to the mayor's task force, so visuals was very important. And we thought that native Databricks kind of charting capabilities, plus additional libraries that we could use, like Folium or Plotly, that would be a perfect match. And now actually we heard about the Redash, and we're really excited to actually try it out too later. And another one selling point was delta tables. So delta allows the time travel mechanism, and we thought that when we do our analysis, if we want to like rerun it and change our input variables, so we can kind of enable that time travel mechanism and rerun our analysis multiple times. So we'll walk kind of through the notebook. We had obviously installing and importing some libraries, and we did both Python and R. That was the first step. So we had two main data sets. The first one was the local businesses, including restaurants, and we used Google API and R to pull that data. And the second one, the traffic counts and locations of the traffic, and we just used the Denver Open Data Catalog. It was a little bit outdated, so ideally we would like more real latest data, but it worked for this purpose. So obviously, the first steps is import and cleanse data sets. So here you can see kind of the businesses data frame we created. So you can see, okay, which zone, and then, the name of the restaurants and location. And also there is like multiple columns here that will show, is it a bakery, is it a restaurant, is it a store? So we already kind of had those features or variables in. So then we cleanse data set by removing some duplicates, renaming things, getting rid of the blanks. So pretty typical kind of first step of cleansing data set. And we also created a feature, one important feature, which is called business type, which pretty much combines all those columns into one column, and will say, is it a restaurant, is it a store, or anything else? So we know what kind of business we're talking about. So in final data set, cleans look pretty simple like that. So we have all the businesses. We also had the price level. We will use it for our analysis, and then the geolocation. The second data set, we kind of follow the same steps. So we cleanse the data, prepare the data, and we had our traffic counts. And we did calculation for the daily traffic, combining the morning and afternoon rush. And we got those traffic counts per day, per location. This was an important step, converting to Spark data frames, because we wanted to mix Python and R. That's how we approached it. So we would convert, because we started building Pandas data frames, then we converted to Spark and then R. So we can kind of, reuse the same data and just collaborate in the same notebook. So for our first visual, the map, we used the Folium. Again, tried a couple of different geo libraries, and Folium seemed the simplest to use. So you can put like markers on the map. For example, here you can see we put here's our restaurants, and then this is our businesses, because we think not only restaurants, but the businesses can either benefit or lose from street closure. And then we also map the traffic on the same map, so we can have this nice visual. Okay. So the next important step is the actual analysis. So what we did, we created this reference table, and we wanted to put dollar amount to all the costs and benefits that we think would affect the street closure. For example, for the restaurants, we would make some assumptions. We say, okay, if we close the street, we think 20 more people will be able to attend this restaurant in an hour, and the restaurant will be open all day, and this is kind of the price level, depending on how expensive the restaurant is. And all those other metrics, right? We also included the staff, so people working there, because again, we think that they will benefit as well in salaries and tips. So we included that as well. So this is our kind of reference main table. And that's where we were thinking we could use the delta. Because, for example, what if at first we make assumption that we think restaurants will be open 10 hours a day. What if it changes? Then we want to rerun this analysis multiple times. So we enabled Delta Lake. And you can see here, for example, we kept changing our CSV file with the reference data, and then it would create and keep the versioning for us. So then once we are ready to use this table, we can just say as of which version to use it. So the 0, it's the very first version, but you can really pick up the any and it will change that data. So then we combine all the data for analysis, just mix in a little bit of SQL here, just because it seems easier. So again, we combine all the traffic, restaurants, in that reference table, and then we were ready to do our calculations. So calculations was pretty straightforward. Pretty much it's benefits versus costs. So we would say, okay, we think that restaurants will benefit by X revenue, and people will benefit by X salary. But then there is costs associated to that. So we think government will have some costs because they will have to support street closure. Restaurants probably will lose some money because takeouts might not be so easy to make. And then obviously traffic. So we put dollar amount to the traffic. Say it's 36 cents per minute per additional drive time. And then our totals. And pretty much we were ready for our visuals. And for visuals, we used either built-in Databricks charting. I think it works just great. It's very easy to do. We built a couple of charts here. And then just for fun, we also used Plotly just to create some KPI-looking metrics. So really, this is the last but most important step. How do we present our analysis? And we use Databricks dashboards to do that. Okay, Steve, do you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So for those that are familiar with this area, with Denver, Colorado, our recommended zone was Pearl Street in comparison to Tennyson and Larimer. So just in case you're familiar with the area, that's kind of cool. So what does this all mean, right? So I'm going to give you guys some key insights into what we found. So as you can see there, generally restaurants benefited more than other business types. So your clothing stores, bookstores, things of that nature. Restaurants are the biggest winners. Within the restaurants, we noticed that those that are in the third price level, so those are up to $60 per dinner, they enjoy the biggest benefits. So that's sort of that threshold. If you charge a little bit too much and then you have too much cost from your operations, you're not going to benefit from the street closure as much as those that are in that sweet spot. It's really between that $30 to $60 range was what we found. And then compared to, so within the restaurant business, who benefit more? Is it the business themselves? Is it the employees? We found the employees are actually the biggest beneficiary. As Yulia was talking about earlier, we looked at things such as the tip that you're going to be able to make. We looked at the number of tables that you can extend out to. And so we saw the employees by a factor of 2 times are able to enjoy more benefits. So you're able to employ more workers, more people are able to come back to work. Subsequently, they're able to make additional tips. So they benefit a little bit more than the actual employers themselves. And then looking at the cost, so, there's all those benefits. What are some of the costs associated with closing the streets? We see that obviously the city government is going to incur a lot of the cost. So think about the revenue that they would normally generate from parking tickets, parking meters. Those are all losses for them. And then also they have to hire police officers, folks that's going to control the streets. They're going to close the streets. So they incur a significant amount of cost. And then some other things that we wanted to bring to consideration is how do we extend this out a little bit more? So one thing that we talked about is if we looked at certain streets, perhaps certain zones may benefit. So restaurant may benefit more in Tennyson, whereas in Larimer, maybe bookstores may benefit more. So those are some of the additional analysis that we wanted to dive into and see. Maybe we can score the different businesses and then score the streets and then merge them that way. So there's some additional level of analysis that we can do to sort of bring this to light even more. Another thing that we talked about doing that they've shown us throughout this week's sessions are the ability to use real-time data. So if we can stream the real-time data that's coming from the city, we can now look at, okay, how are our projections differ minute by minute. So, if we look at, okay, today, maybe or this week, maybe restaurants are better in certain zones. Perhaps next week, things could be different. So using real-time data to inform our decisions could help us. It can also help with the businesses as well to determine if they want to continue to extend out or if they need to retreat. And then the really the last piece is, how do we extend this beyond city of Denver, Colorado? We're very much interested in building up the entire state. And so we would like to engage not only the city officials, but also get this in front of the governor's office. So other major cities in Colorado, your Greeley's, we can take this there, and then they can also utilize some of this technology and this data set that we've built. So thank you all very much. We are taking it to the streets. And glad you was able to join us today.
And it looks like we have 2 questions. So we'll start with the first one that Ryan asked: what was the most challenging part of the development? Leah, do you want to take this one, since you did most of the coding?
I think a couple of things. For me personally, just choosing the libraries to use. Like, for example, even for the mapping library, I tried out GeoPandas. It was not that easy. Just volume proved to be much nicer and provided more options. So really kind of deciding on that probably was the hardest. We also have some challenges with using R. So I think, again, Python is just more supported than Databricks and R is less. So we definitely had to jump over some loops and just kind of, adjust. So those probably the biggest ones. I don't know, Brian or Steve, do you guys want to add anything on the R side?
Well, I think, Yulia, we had some initial challenges in just finding the right data set. We tried a few different data sets. We tried data from the city, but found that there were a lot of errors. There was some missing data. Ultimately, we went with the Google API. That proved to be the most inclusive data set. But that took some time to establish. I think that was a bit of a challenge up front.
Sure.
And we have a second one. Did you take into account the taxes? So this is something we did not consider yet. And we actually have a whole slew of other ideas as we want to keep expanding this. So I think right now where it's at is there are conversations going around. I know that there's 4 streets that have already opened and using this concept. So we want to keep pushing information so that they can keep expanding it. But I do think that's a good one. I don't think was on our list of taxes that we can put into version 2 of this. Other questions, ideas? We're very open to new ideas. All right, well, we'll stick around for the next 5 or so minutes. So if anyone does have a question, feel free to post in that chat. But other than that, thank you for joining. Nope, there's one more. Are there reasons behind the street closures? And if so, would they be relevant? So reasons behind the closures, this would be only to provide benefits to those specific restaurants. So someone I work with up in Erie, Colorado, Jeff went out to a restaurant for the first time since all of the closures happened. He said that he felt like he was very safe instead of sitting inside at a restaurant, you could be outdoors. In Colorado, we have 300 days of sunshine. So he was outside. They were very well spaced apart. So really the reason behind the street closure is only to provide benefit to like the streets and shops so that they can have more of that like social distancing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other piece to it is obviously if businesses are being told to only operate at 50% capacity as such, being able to extend out to the street will help them get to a higher percentage. And then ultimately, as we stated earlier, gain more revenue. And then for their workers, they have more tables, for example, and then ultimately it'll be more tips for the staff as well.
The next question, is it possible to share your GitHub site? Yes, certainly. And we put it on the deck. I don't know if there's a way, response. There you go. Thank you, Yulia. So if anyone else wants the GitHub to look at the code, it's in that response. So go copy, paste that GitHub account.
And also, if you go to the actual hackathon page in the dev post, so all our presentation and the links are also there. So you can get it that way.
And contacting if there's other questions, yes. Please either through the dev posts where the hackathon was, or also through the site. You can go in there and find our names and then contact us directly. So let me put our names in here.
And Diane also said that the presentation will be in the theater under downloads. So you can actually see the presentation and our names and the GitHub link as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess.
Do you have time for one more question?
Probably.
I just want to say congratulations, you guys, and I'm curious what the future is of this project. Are you just going to keep on iterating and refining the model, and what's next?
Yeah, ultimately, we'd like to expand this, as Steve said, throughout the state of Colorado, and then even beyond that as possible. I think that a lot of restaurants are going to be looking for ways to, frankly, to survive during these times, and it's going to be a helpful way for them to think about expanding their operations, expanding into the streets to build out their capacity.
It looks like we have one more, guys.
We've got actually 16 seconds. It will close right on time. So any other questions, though, I encourage everyone to reach out to the folks here through our Data People tab so that you guys can connect directly. And thank you guys so much. Congratulations.